Back to Access Tech Live.
Now we're back on Access Tech Live. The Americans with Disabilities Act is turning 34 tomorrow. Now, despite the great progress that we've made, one area that is severely lacking is digital accessibility.
Yeah, that's true, Stephen. Mark Pound is the founder and CEO of a company called CurbCut OS, a company run by people with disabilities specializing in digital accessibility, and he joins us now.
Looking back over the past 34 years, how would you assess the overall impact of the ADA on digital accessibility in particular?
You know, I think it's got great intent, but, you know, the one thing that always resonates with me is we're in 2024, and I don't think this is maybe any fault to the ADA, because obviously that's what we go by with the ADA guidelines. But here we are in 2024, and approximately 96 to 97% of global digital assets are not compliant to some degree. And year-over-year improvements are 0.5 to 1% maybe. And yet we're in this increasing digital age. So it's kind of perplexing to me if it really boils down to it.
Do you think you can attribute that to anything in particular? Because, you know, if we look back or we look at the mainstream tech world as an example, just use AI as an example for the growth of it over the past couple of years especially, and the speed at which it's accelerating. Why are things like that accelerating, but yet we're still in this big deficit here when it comes to digital accessibility?
You know what I have found is, one, obviously everything is economics, right, in the business world. But one thing that I think is overlooked, well, there's several, is the size of the market. You know, I've come across, and I've even found out myself over the years, that people go, digital accessibility, what? Or, oh, that market's not very big. This is just a compliance checkbox. Let's not focus on user experience. And so we're in the process of changing that narrative to go, well, wait a minute, hold on. There are approximately 1.85 billion people, and I don't think that number even includes the aging population or people with chronic disease that will end up leading into a disability. So if we really look at that, we're over 2 billion people. And then we really start looking at the economics. Those 2 billion represent trillions of dollars. And so that's the narrative we're focusing on instead of where it's been. That's fine, but we need to focus on where we're going and how we're going to get there.
So your company, CurbCut OS, focuses on digital accessibility. I think here at Access Tech Live and with you at CurbCut OS, our agendas are very similar and our goals are very similar as well and aligned. We're trying to educate people here. However, it can be challenging, right? When, you know, despite all the information out there, all the great work being done to promote digital accessibility by the top tech companies, it does sometimes feel that the word is just not reaching people. People just don't know about the tools, the tech that is out there that can make a disabled person's life easier. How do you approach that?
So I have an interesting approach, and I take an outside point of view anytime I come into something. Now, granted, I have what's known as an invisible disability. I've got a long story behind it, but I've got a lot of spine trauma. I live in pain. I have nerve issues. My left arm isn't the same as my right arm. So I take that perspective and the journey I had to recover from all of that and go, wait a minute, why isn't anybody paying attention to this? And at the same time, if you put your shoes on from the business world, the education part just hasn't been there. The awareness part just hasn't been there. It's always been, and I'm inclined to say, and in my generation, we grew up with, oh, the poster child disabled person. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. No. 1 in 4 people, which means you could be sitting next to a train, on a plane, walking down the sidewalk, and not even know it. But people aren't understanding of that until it comes up. You're in a conference room and somebody goes, hey, can you turn that up? I can't hear it. And they go, wait a minute, what? So, you know, it's taken away, I guess, the taboo of it, and saying there's, you know, we're all here. We get one shot. We don't get a reset button. And everybody wants the same thing, to enjoy life.
You know, the value of the disability pound is something that perhaps doesn't get the kind of attention that perhaps it desires. You know, we hear companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft all doing great work and, you know, actually putting their money where their mouth is in terms of actually putting great accessibility into their products. But it is a bit of a fight when it comes to other companies. And despite all the stuff going on, despite all the conversations and despite all the word out there, it's just, like I said earlier, it's not reaching people. You know, you talked about 3% of websites being inaccessible. I mean, that's just ridiculous in 2024, right?
100%. And I think the other thing, and hence our name, CurbCut OS, is what people don't realize are all walks of life already use some shapes or forms of assistive technologies. If you have closed captioning on your TV, that's an assistive technology. If you blow up the screen on your phone to look at text or an image, that's technically an assistive technology. But so there's the crossover, right? What people don't realize, and what I've been asked personally, is show me the difference between a website that's accessible and the one that's not. And my response is, there isn't. And they almost look at me like, but that can't be the case. Well, how is that true? And I'm like, well, it is true when you go into the code and you work on it that way with the color contrast. Oh, it's going to wreck my brand. No, actually, it's not.
Tell us about the CurbCut OS approach, which is your software, obviously, as a service. What does it do for businesses of all shapes and sizes? What's the process like when someone reaches out to you, prospective client? How do you actually figure out whether it makes sense to work with them? What's that process like?
Yeah, we're getting ready to come out with a SaaS platform, and that SaaS platform was derived from listening to the clients that we did managed services on, albeit auditing and remediation of websites and apps. So we learned and listened to the market firsthand, learned of the frustrations, learned about all those myths, learned about all the tremendous amount of pain points. That's what went into our SaaS platform, to where, you know, the company stakeholder can go in and really get tangible information to then be set up and be empowered. And at the same time, the focus is on user experience. If we're not delivering solutions that give a good audit, which then leads to good remediation, and then year over year improvements, which can drive costs down and then drive ROI up for the companies, then what happens is it ends up improving it for the end users, and everybody ends up winning. In addition to that SaaS platform, we also have consulting services, training services, and managed services, because the SaaS platform can't do everything right now. It'll evolve over a period of time. But we also support that, because a lot of people come in and they go, okay, this is great, but I don't know where to start. So we will sit down, do a discovery session, draw up a roadmap that fits within their criteria for that year, and then work with them, and then they can engage with the SaaS platform firsthand. Now, the SaaS platform's got some proprietary elements in it where we're not a scanning company per se. What we like to say is we're humanized technology. So there's plenty of rule sets and scanning companies out there from an automated standpoint. And from that automated standpoint, no one rule set or scanner is going to be able to capture all those errors. You're going to capture anywhere from, I think it's around 30, maybe up to 50%. However, if you do it in aggregate, your capture rate goes way up. And what we've been able to find is our capture rate goes above 90%, which then leads to a better remediation, and it's focused on the user experience. So that was a mouthful, but, you know, it's kind of the byproduct of this industry. There's so much to cover, but yet you got to try to condense it and make sense out of it. So hopefully I did as good job as possible.
The website, of course, is curbcutos.com. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. It's been fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Coming up, we're going to wrap things up for this week and invite you to get involved in next week's show. Stick around. This is Access Tech Live.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back.